Nidra Weinrich is the president of and founder of Weinrich Communications and is widely recognized as an expert in the field of social marketing. She's the author of the classic book Hands-on Social Marketing, a step-by-step guide, and a prominent blogger on social media issues at the Spare Change blog. Since starting Weinrich Communications in 1995, Nidra has provided effective and innovative social marketing services for clients like U.S. Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration, Public Health Service, National Cancer Institute, EPA, Department of Energy, and others. She teaches a course on social media at UCLA's School of Public Health. Nidra earned her master's degree in health and social behavior from the Harvard School of Public Health. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. And thank you to all of you who logged on to join us this morning. At least it's morning for me. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you all are. So welcome. And I just want to clarify what I tend to focus on is social marketing using the traditional definition from 1971 that Kotler and Zaltman used, talking about using marketing to promote health and social issues. Lately, a lot of people have started using the term social marketing when they actually mean social media marketing. So I want to clarify right from the outset, we're going to be talking about marketing tools used to promote health and social change. Okay, so let's get right into it. This is one of my favorite ways to start off a presentation because I love this cartoon. I think it really illustrates the power of marketing and why what we do is so important, because these marketing techniques really affect what we aspire to be, who we want to be, what we want to do with our lives. And what we can do as social marketers is really grab that power and use it for positive purposes, use it to help people become healthier, to help their lives become better off. And so this is really why we are using social marketing. I always like to start off with the example of Starbucks, because everyone knows Starbucks, and it's such a great example of marketing. So when you think about the Starbucks customer, I bet you have a pretty clear picture in your mind of who goes to Starbucks, who uses Starbucks. Usually when I ask people what they think, okay, so Starbucks has a very clear vision of who their customers are. Usually the vision you would have in your mind is someone who is maybe an urban professional, someone who has some money, who cares about the coffee that they drink, and who might also get a certain measure of status from having Starbucks coffee as opposed to bringing their coffee from home or going to the local coffee shop to get coffee. So this Starbucks is great about figuring out who their target customer is and imbuing that sense in the people who they're marketing to. Thinking about Starbucks also, Starbucks meets a lot of different needs for different people. It's not just about the coffee. It's about a place to meet. It's about a place to work if you don't have a home office or you want to work outside of your office. Starbucks is a great place to go because they have Wi-Fi. It's also about a whole lifestyle that includes music and books and other things that relate to just relaxation and the good life. And so when we think about who the competition for Starbucks is, it really depends on what is that need that people are using, or what is the need that people are meeting by going to Starbucks. And when we look at all of the different things that people go there for, that shows you that there's different ways that, depending on what the need is, that's where the competition comes in. That's where if the need is just some coffee, people could make their own coffee. They could go to Pete's Coffee. There's a lot of different places they could go. if they're going there for a treat for themselves, the competition might be something like going and getting a manicure or something like that. So when we know and understand what the needs are, then we can look at who the competition is and how we could perhaps position a product against what they're offering. And so that's really what we need to be able to do with our own issues that we're working on. Whatever health issues you're trying to promote, whether it's immunizations or preventing heart disease or getting people to exercise, we need to think from a marketing mindset as well in terms of understanding who our target audience is, what needs are they meeting by doing the unhealthy behaviors, and what is the competition that we can offer that shows that what we're offering is different and better and meets those needs that people are using the unhealthy behaviors for. And so all of these associations that come to our mind when we think of Starbucks or any other product really is the result of marketing and of our own experiences with that brand. So when organizations want to create social change or health change within a population, there's generally 3 ways that we do it. So first of all, what we often turn to is education, where we're explaining the rational reasons why someone should do what we're promoting. So talking about the importance of the behavior and why it's just the right thing to do. And this is kind of the default position, I think, for a lot of us in health promotion, because it's what we learned and it's what makes sense to us. And we've done a great job of educating people on things like using 911 for emergencies or things like that. Facts are important, and often having those facts and understanding rationally why we should be doing something is an important first step. It's often necessary but not sufficient to bringing about behavior change. So we generally know what we should be doing to stay healthy. And I think a lot of times we feel like if other people only knew what we knew, then they would do all the right things. But think about your own life. Are you doing everything that you know you should be doing, whether it's eating healthy, exercising, getting enough sleep? I'm sure we all know things we should be doing, but for some reason we're just not doing it. So clearly the educational approach is not sufficient. Then another way, kind of at the other end of the behavior change spectrum, is coercion, where we say, do it because I say so, whether it's enforcing laws and policies that create penalties for not engaging in a desired behavior, or if someone does something, then they get a fine or get put in jail, things like drunk driving, or wearing seat belts. These are examples of using coercion to create behavior change. And oftentimes it can be really effective. We've had great success in getting people to wear their seat belts over time by having these seat belt laws. But at the same time, I don't think we want to live in a world where everything that we do is legislated one way or the other, what we are allowed or not allowed to do. So sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it doesn't make sense. And then what we're going to be talking about is marketing, using marketing to show people why they should, to kind of persuade them to do a healthy behavior, because it's going to help them be the person that they want to be. Facts and statistics can only go so far, and so what we need to do through marketing is using using the values and desires that motivate people, the values that really have more sway over what we actually do as opposed to what we know we should do. And so we use marketing to connect with people's core values and show how our products, our behaviors that we're promoting, reinforces their self-image and who they want to be. So what is social marketing? basically it's using commercial marketing techniques to promote social or health behaviors that will benefit the people who are adopting the behaviors to help them become healthier, or that will benefit society in some way. And these are the same kinds of marketing techniques that a company like Nike or Apple would use. And so what we do is we take those tools and we apply them in new ways to our health or social behaviors that we're promoting. And I love to use the example of the Truth campaign as a social marketing campaign that really did this well in terms of identifying values and building the campaign around that. And if you're not familiar with the Truth campaign, this was a campaign that has been running for many years, aimed at teenagers, trying to keep them from starting to smoke. And the brilliant thing that they did at the very beginning is, rather than going down the path that a lot of other smoking prevention campaigns do, where well, the older ones are more focused on, you know, showing diseased lungs and talking about all the horrible things that'll happen if you smoke. But then we kind of evolved to campaigns that talked about how if you smoke, then your teeth are going to become yellow, people won't want to kiss you, things like that, kind of the shorter term social effects. But what the Truth campaign did that was brilliant is they identified what are those values that determine what that are driving teens to start smoking. So things like the desire to rebel, the desire to show their independence, but at the same time being part of a larger group, being part of their peers and expressing themselves as part of that. And so what they did is, rather than having teens rebelling against their parents or other authority figures, they turned it around so that the teens are rebelling against the tobacco industry. And the key point that they make is, look what they're doing. They think that you're stupid. They're trying to fool you into starting to smoke. And so the whole campaign is all about standing up to the tobacco industry and not letting them pull the wool over their eyes and forcing them to start smoking. And they also brought in others of those teen values, like the desire to be part of something. So they had all kinds of events, and it became kind of a movement for teens to join. So they would be part of this movement, and at the same time within that movement, they had opportunities to express themselves in different ways. And I just realized I forgot to turn to this slide, which shows just some of the examples from the Truth campaign's marketing. It's always been really kind of cutting edge and kind of a little bit on the edge in terms of what they've been doing to get teens' attention. But they've really been effective. There's been lots of evaluations done over time that have shown that the Truth campaign really has made a big difference in the amount of teen smoking that's going on now. Okay, so let's jump right in. And I have what I call the 10 Commandments of Social Marketing. And what these are just 10 ways that you can start to build social marketing into what you're doing right now, just new ways to look at your audience, new ways to look at your product in terms of what you're promoting. And hopefully by the end of this webinar, you'll have some new ideas for what you can use from the social marketing concepts to apply to your own programs. Okay, so here we go. Number 1, talk with your audience. And this seems kind of obvious, doesn't it? But so often it doesn't happen. And also, listen. Both of these things are so important. Social marketing really is a bottom-up rather than a top-down process, and so that means that you need to focus on your target audience and what their wants and needs are, what their lives are like, and really understand how what you're asking them to do fits in with their lives and what they're interested in. And this really comes down to research. Too often we just assume that we know what people want and need and then build programs around that without actually asking them. And then we're surprised that it doesn't work. So the key is really involving members of your target audience in learning about what is going to work for them, what their lives are like, what they, how they think about the issue. And I hesitate to call this research because that scares away a lot of people, but it doesn't necessarily need to even be formal research. It can be getting people together around a table and having pizza together and putting out questions for them and having them discuss it. It doesn't have to be a formal focus group in a focus group facility with one-way mirrors and that sort of thing. So it's really critical to understand your audience by actually talking to them. Next, segment your audience. This means that you want to, once you understand who your audience is, you want to group them in different ways based on what kinds of approaches are going to be most effective for them. So sometimes we segment the audience based on demographics. Sometimes we segment them based on their current knowledge, attitudes, or behaviors and create campaigns around that. But the key point is there's no such thing as marketing to the general public. Too often I hear people say that their target audience is the general public. Don't do that. A one-size-fits-all program doesn't really fit anyone very well. And so by really narrowing down and focusing on who is the audience that you're trying to reach, who most needs the program, or who might be the focus of who your program is working with, that's the most important thing to do is really selecting who you're focusing on with the program. And how do you pick which of all of those groups who may be affected you want to choose? The most common way that we do it is we look at both the targets of risk and the targets of opportunity. So the targets of risk are those people who, if you can get them to change their behavior, then you'll have the biggest payoff. You'll get the biggest bang for your buck, because these are the people who might be either most at risk for getting a certain disease or dying from it or having other severe consequences. And so if you can get those people to change, then you may be, that may be huge success for you. And the problem there is that those targets of risk may be the people who have resisted wave after wave of other campaigns that have come along to try to convince them. And so those may be the hardest people to reach. But if you can change them, then you have a huge payoff. Now the other way you can go is looking at who are the targets of opportunity. And what that means, that's kind of the low-hanging fruit, whereas the targets of risk are that golden apple up on top of the tree that are hard to reach but really valuable. The targets of opportunity are the low-hanging fruit, meaning that those are the people who may be ready to change. They might not be the people most at risk. They might be pretty healthy people, but they might be ready to take on what you're proposing. And so if they start doing your health behavior, then it'll help them certainly, but it's not going to make as big a dent in the overall problem. But the great thing about reaching those people who are ready to change is that once they get going, you can get kind of a snowball effect going where people are, as people talk to their friends and family who may actually be in the targets of risk population, you can get a lot of change and get momentum for your program. Let me just finish up here. So in social marketing, the main way that we segment is by behaviors and attitudes. And so if, for example, we have a program that wants to promote fruit and vegetable consumption, some different ways that we might think about segmenting people might be their current behaviors. Do they currently eat enough fruits and vegetables? Do they eat any? So there might be a continuum there. Whether they work or not, which might affect what their eating habits are like during the day, so whether they buy or bring their lunch with them to work or school, whether they're the person who does the shopping for their family, what their attitudes are about vegetables. Maybe they just don't like them, or maybe they think that vegetables are a good thing, but they just don't like the taste. And so depending on what the reasons are that are keeping them from adopting that behavior of eating fruits and vegetables, you'll need to take different approaches with them. And so creating those segments that are similar to each other on key characteristics is going to help you be more effective with your program. Okay, next commandment is position your product. And your product positioning determines how the people in your target audience think about your product or your behavior as compared to the competition. So this is just an example of all the different kinds of soaps that are out there. And when you think about soap, there's a lot of reasons why someone would choose one soap over another, and each of them has their own specific niche, whether it's one for women or one for men, or one that's hypoallergenic, or one that smells good or makes you feel sexy, or is good for the environment, or is the least expensive. All of them have their own little niche, their position in people's minds of how they think about it. And so what we need to do is really think about how is our product, the behavior that we're promoting, how are people going to think about it in relation to the other alternatives? And that's how we're going to distinguish and market our behavior to them. So the first thing you need to do in thinking about your product is being really specific about what the behavior is that you're promoting. Too often we say things like, we want to increase people's fitness levels. Well, be really specific about what the behavior is that you want them to do. Do you want them to, for example, take the stairs instead of the elevator? Do you want them to exercise for 30 minutes 4 times a week? Whatever it is, be as specific as you can without talking in kind of general health generalities that are not as helpful in being specific in making that product clear to the people you're trying to reach. And once you know what your product is, what you need to do is find those benefits to the product that click with the people that you're trying to reach. And it may be different for different groups. This is an example of one of my favorite campaigns that was done by the Academy for Educational Development. And what the issue was that they were addressing with these posts, I think these were billboards, is that when people were fertilizing their lawns, and this was in the Chesapeake Bay area, people were fertilizing their lawns in the springtime, and what happens is the rains wash the fertilizer into the Chesapeake Bay, and it hurts the sea life there. And so the campaign, what the behavior was that they wanted people to do, was to get them to fertilize in the fall when a lot less runoff would be happening. And so rather than doing the standard campaign, kind of the Save the Bay campaign that had been tried before, they took a totally different tactic and identified what are the benefits that really click with that audience. And what it was is that in the Chesapeake Bay, people are really into seafood, and especially the blue crabs. That's really what they're known for. And so the runoff was actually injuring the blue crab population. And so the benefit that they decided to focus on is that by fertilizing your lawn in the fall, you will be able to eat those crabs that you like so much. So the campaign slogan was "Save the crabs, then eat them," and it was a totally unexpected twist on how the product had usually been promoted. And so sometimes we need to think of what are the benefits that really are going to motivate people and build the campaign around that rather than just the things that we think are most important. And also, if you can make it fun, people will be more likely to do it. This is just an example. Some of you may have seen that Volkswagen did this campaign where they created a staircase. This was in Stockholm, Sweden, where they painted it to look like stairs, and as people walked on each step played a different musical note. And this really motivated people to take the stairs instead of the escalator. And in fact, stair use over the course of this campaign increased by 66%. So just doing something to change what the product is, or change the characteristics of it, make it more fun, is something that can be really effective. Next, make it easy. The easier you can make the behavior, the more likely people are going to do it. And so, for example, just providing reminders. A lot of times with, for example, turning off the light to conserve energy, people just forget to do that as they go out of the room. So giving them a little reminder sticker they can put on the light socket or the light switch can make a big difference. Or things like how you design the street in terms of planting trees, or the shape of the roadway can make a huge difference in how people, the speed that people drive. And so rather than having signs telling people slow down or things like that, using design so that people don't even have to be persuaded, it just kind of automatically happens, can be much more effective in getting behavior to occur that you want. And often there are ways that we can use design to look at changes in the product that we're asking people to do, changing exactly what the behavior is, or in changing the environment that people are in. So building additional safe walking paths in a community can be a huge way to get people to start to walk if that was the reason why they weren't doing it before. Number 5 is go to your audience, go to where they are. People are not going to look for your campaign. They're not going to go out of their way to find your message. You need to put your message and your product in the places where your target audience is going to be. And ideally also at the times and places that they have to make decisions about whether to do the behavior or not. So this is the idea of aperture. Like a camera's lens that opens and shuts very quickly to capture a picture, you may have only a very small window of opportunity to capture your audience's attention. And people are more likely to pick up on messages when they're already thinking about the subject or involved in some way or have to make a decision. And so identifying those times and places where they're going to be most receptive and able to act on it is going to make you much more successful. Now, an example of this, a fun example, is a campaign that I did a while ago to prevent unintended pregnancies among young women. And we found out that there were certain bars and clubs that they tended to go to. And so what we did is we created drink coasters that we passed out to the different bars and clubs in the area for free that they put on the tables. And our thinking was, if we can't be with them at the exact point where they're making decisions about whether to use contraception, at least we can reach them hopefully right before and plant the idea in their mind. So those drink coasters were a way of doing that, or at least they were a great conversation starter among friends or potential sexual partners. So you need to know where you can find your target audience in terms of what media they use, what places they tend to frequent, where do they go online. And so just don't expect people to come find you. You have to make it as easy as possible for them to do what you want them to do. And so that's really the idea behind Aperture and place and time. Next is use a variety of approaches. Not everyone uses the same kind of media generally, and the more different ways that you can give people the message in a way that that they learn the best, the better. And so this is, I think, a great slide that hopefully you'll look back at later on that kind of lays out all of the different ways that you can reach people. You can be as creative as possible, as long as it's something that is going to appeal to your audience and reach them where they are. So these are just a couple of examples of some campaigns that have used creative approaches. You don't always have to use TV or radio or online. These are some blankets that the Salvation Army posted around town, and they turned into kind of walking billboards as they served a purpose as well. This is a great example of a really low cost and highly effective technique, where when people come into a bar or club and have their hands stamped, rather than just having a stamp that has a picture or a word on it, have the stamp be the phone number that they can call at the end of the night when they aren't able to drive home. Here's another example. This is from Vietnam, where they were trying to encourage people to wash their hands after using the restroom. So the Vietnamese at the top there says, "This poster is made of soap. Use it to wash your hands." So it's both the product and the message at the same time. Okay, number 7 is use models that work. And this pyramid is how I like to describe the social marketing process. And the process is something that's been shown to work over time. It's a way of making sure that you take into account all of the different pieces of information about your problem that you're addressing, the environment that you're working in, your target audience, and building a strategy and implementing it in a way that will be most effective. And one of the most helpful models for us in social marketing, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, is the stages of change model. And just briefly, I'll go over it because I think it is so helpful in terms of describing how behavior change takes place. So this theory says that people move through a series of steps in a continuum before they actually adopt a new behavior. It's not just a two-step process where first they're not doing it and then all of a sudden they are, but people often mentally go through all of these stages, and sometimes it may happen in a few seconds for really simple, easy behaviors, and other times they may start going through the process and get stuck in a certain place. So what the first stage is pre-contemplation. And that's where a person might not feel at risk for the condition or may not think that the behavior is relevant to them. People at this stage have to be made aware of the problem and what their possible risk factors are in order to move on to the next stage. And so that awareness is usually necessary in order to get people to make a change. I want to just emphasize that awareness for its own sake is not very useful. Someone could be aware of what they should be doing, but if they don't actually do it, that doesn't get you very far. So once we move them from pre-contemplation into contemplation, then we need to continue moving them through the process. So in contemplation, that's where they realize that they probably need to do something about the problem, and they start thinking about whether it's actually something that they want to do. So for your audience that's in the contemplation stage, the messages should be promoting the benefits of performing the behavior and minimizing the perceived costs, and showing also that this is something that other people like them are happy with, they're doing, and having good results. So then if they move into preparation, this is where we need to start giving people the skills to be able to carry out the behavior. In some cases it may not be necessary, in other cases it may be very complex. And this is also where people start running up against the barriers, realizing that this is something that's going to take too much time or hassle, or they may have decided that they should get a flu shot, but they don't know where to get one, so they let it drop. So the preparation stage is really where we need to be handing them the information and the skills and the ability, making it as easy as possible for them to take action. So once they finally do take action and try the behavior, then if it's a one-time behavior, then they're done. If it's something like a lot of our health promotion behaviors where you need to do it over and over again, like eating healthy is something you have to think about all day, every day, then you go into what's called maintenance. And that's where you really need to give people motivational messages and reinforce their successes and help them set goals so that they don't relapse. And what all too often happens is that someone will get to maintenance and then run into some barriers and end up back in contemplation, where they know that they should be doing something, but they're just not quite ready yet. So using this model of behavior change is really a useful framework for segmenting your target audience. So a program could address people in each stage sequentially over a period of time, or you could just pick those at a particular stage of the process and focus your efforts all on moving them to the next stage. Okay, next, test, test, test. If you do no other type of research in your entire program, at least pre-test your campaign with members of your target audience. And do it before you print up thousands of copies of a brochure or spend lots of money on video PSA. So, and I don't mean that you have to do a big research study with focus groups and surveys. At least just find people who are in the target audience, show them your stuff, and ask them what they think. Focus groups can be great. There's a lot of really excellent ways of testing your materials. But if you don't have the funds, if you don't have a lot of time, don't let that stop you. You need to get some feedback from members of your target audience, because that can save you a lot of potentially costly mistakes and make sure that it's as effective as possible before you spend all the money to go into production. And so although it may add a slight delay into your campaign, it can actually save you time in the end, so that you start out with an effective campaign from the beginning instead of having to scramble to fix it midway. Okay, next is build partnerships with key allies. And a lot of the issues that we're addressing with social marketing and in health promotion are fairly complex. These are things that one organization by itself is not likely to be able to make a huge dent in. But when we can, where we can make a huge dent is when we start partnering with other organizations and pooling resources, finding other organizations that may have similar goals to what we're trying to do, or who have similar audience to the people that we're trying to reach, and working with them to pool resources. And also finding the organizations that have the potential to bring attention and credibility with your audience. So working with these partnerships can bring you more access to your target audience, both for finding people to test your materials with and do research with, and it can also get the attention of your target audience if it's an organization that they pay more attention to and find more credible. Sadly, there's a lot of people who don't necessarily trust their local health department, and so by working through other partners, you may be able to use organizations that are on their radar screen and people that they trust. So really think through who are the other organizations that you might be able to work with for building partnerships. And finally, number 10 is see what you can do better next time. Now, evaluation is something that needs to happen throughout the social marketing process. It happens as you test and refine your messages and materials and what the program is going to look like. It happens as you monitor the implementation process to make sure that everything's happening as it was planned to do, and being able to catch problems that arise as they happen so that you can immediately address them. And it also happens at the end of the program to look back and see, did you make a difference? What worked and what didn't work? And really the key is building in that evaluation component from the very beginning. It's something you need to think about at the beginning when you're looking at building your goals and objectives and identifying what is it that you want to track in terms of changes that happen, whether it's knowledge, attitudes, behaviors, or other kinds of changes that you're working towards in your program. So as you do evaluation, remember you are allowed to make changes midstream in a social marketing program if you find out that something isn't working. It's not experimental research to test a hypothesis and not contaminate the findings. In the real world of marketing, you can go in and quickly fix things that aren't working, change things, or pull a particular element based on what you're finding in terms of the response from the audience. But what you want to do is really keep your eyes on the ultimate goal, which is to help your target audience become healthier and better off in their lives. So this was a very quick introduction to social marketing and things you can start using right away. And I just want to end with a couple of quotes that I really like that I think are appropriate for social marketing. The first is from Charles Revson, who was the founder of Revlon. And what he says is, in the factory we make cosmetics. In the drugstore we sell hope. So we need to think about what is it that we're selling exactly. And then the other one is that customers buy for their reasons, not yours. And so we need to really think about how do we find out what those reasons are. And I think what happens is we often create campaigns that we think are fantastic and really would work for us, but unless your target audience consists of other health promotion professionals, it may not work for your audience. So what we need to do is really find out what is going to work for our target audience, what's going to appeal to them, and build the campaign around that rather than what works for us. Okay, so I'm going to open it up to questions about anything related to social marketing.
Okay, the questions are beginning, but I want to say first, one of the things I thought was really, really valuable in your presentation was that slide, several slides back, where you kind of talked about the different means of touch points, for lack of a better term. You know, it's not just about billboards, it's not just about, you know, other means of communications, that really all of that, all those options are available and should be considered more in a collaborative way, I suppose.
Right. Social marketing doesn't equal mass media campaign. All these things that you have been doing all along that have been effective, you don't have to throw those out. They can be part of your social marketing campaign. I mean, just having someone talk to someone else, a doctor or a counselor or a health educator, can be really effective. And in fact, often it's that one-on-one interchange that can really be the most effective for getting someone to see how they can make a change.
Julie would like to know if you could give examples of using social marketing in family planning.
Oh my, there are a zillion examples of that. A lot of it has been done and in fact was pioneered internationally. Like in the 70s and 80s, that was really where social marketing was happening, was in family planning programs and internationally. So there's a lot of that kind of thing, and a lot of what they used to do, or actually what they still do is actually create a brand of condom, for example, or birth control pill that they package and sell as their social marketing product. So they're actually competing with the other products out there. In the U.S., the Planned Parenthood Association has done some great campaigns. I can't think of the specific names of the campaigns right offhand, but if you look at what the Planned Parenthood Federation, I believe, has been doing, they have a lot of regional campaigns as well as national campaigns that have been based on really sound social marketing principles and practice, and that are great examples.
Starlene would like to know, to reiterate, what kind of testing would you do for a teen pregnancy or a substance abuse prevention program? What kind of testing? I think it's testing regarding testing your social marketing plan.
Okay. In terms of the kinds of pre-testing methods that are out there, there's a lot of different ways to test. One of the most common ways is with a focus group, where you bring together a group of maybe 5 to 8 teens. With teens, you probably want to keep the numbers smaller because it can get out of hand with a larger group of teens in one place. But in the course of a focus group, showing your materials, getting their feedback, that's one main way that's done. There's also something called intercept surveys that are also very commonly done in commercial marketing, where you go to a place where a lot of the members of your audience tend to hang out, and for teens maybe it would be somewhere like the shopping mall, and have researchers approaching people who look like they might fit your target audience specifications, asking them if they would be willing to answer some questions. Usually you would offer them some kind of incentive, whether it's for a drink at the mall or movie tickets or something like that. And then bring them over to a separate area where you interview one person at a time and show them the campaign and get their feedback on that. There's other things that you can do that are especially important with teen populations and actually across the board. Things like looking at the education level required for your materials, the reading level, and making sure that people even understand what the words mean that you're using in there. So often what happens is that we in health promotion are so used to throwing around these big words that we forget that other people might not know what they mean, or that other people don't have the same reading level as us. So really making sure that in addition to it being effective, that they even are getting the message and understanding what we're trying to tell them.
So no mention of the 4 Ps, which is kind of a relief. Any comment on what you think about them? Obviously a marketer. Katie?
Well, the 4 Ps are critical, and I've kind of touched on elements of them in this presentation. I didn't present it formally as the Ps, but a lot of what we're talking about is, and for those of you who aren't familiar with that, is the idea that to put together an effective social marketing strategy, first of all, you need to take into account what is your product and be really specific and clear about the product and the benefits that you're promoting and how you're positioning it. The next P is price, which is what does your audience have to give up in order to adopt your program or to adopt your product. And so that could be money, but it could also be things like time and hassle or embarrassment or disapproval of their peers. And so we need to think about what are those key barriers that would be standing in their way, and how can we reduce that price as much as possible? How can we make it easy for them to do it? The third P is place, and that's where I was talking about make sure that you go to where your audience is. It's that idea of aperture, being in the right time in the right place with your behavior, your product. And then finally there is promotion, which is what are all those methods that you're going to use to actually get your message to your audience. And I have to add that I've added 4 additional Ps to the social marketing mix, because there are things that are specific and unique to social marketing and different from commercial marketing. So very briefly, one is publics, and that's where we think about all the different groups that we need to take into account. The stakeholders, the secondary target audiences who influence the people whose behavior needs to change, media, policymakers, and then also within our organization, boards of directors or even the people who are answering the phones, so that we make sure that those people know if a phone call comes in related to the campaign, that they know what to say and do with that person. Next is policy. Sometimes we need to think about what organizational or governmental policies can we put into place to make that behavior change easier to do, to create an environment that supports it. Partnership is the next P, and I talked about that a little bit. And then finally is purse strings, where we need to figure out where is that money going to come from that's going to pay for our social marketing campaign. And it's not often that we get a pot of money and they say, here, make a social marketing campaign. More often we have to go seek funding, whether it's from grants or other kinds of foundations or government sources. So that's how I've structured my, what I call 8 Ps.
See, another person wants to know if it's feasible to create a campaign, bilingual campaign, in both English and Spanish.
Absolutely. A lot of campaigns create bilingual campaigns or multilingual campaigns. I know here in California where I am, a lot of the campaigns are done in sometimes 3 or 4 different languages, depending on what region of the state it's being done. The key there is really that you need to make sure that you don't just translate your English campaign directly into Spanish or whatever the language is, and it's not just changing the picture on the poster to someone who's Hispanic. But you need to look at it within the full cultural context, because there may be lots of other things going on in terms of culture and values that you're not aware of. And so really testing it and using, working with members of that target audience as well to develop the campaign and tweak it in a way that's going to make it work for them is important. So it's not just a matter of translation. You need to make sure that the whole thing really works.
Somebody was wondering if there's a toolkit or a guide or something to help people with, with little background in this to really implement an effective social marketing plan. And I think that that makes me want to say, buy your book.
Here, let me move on to the next slide. I actually, that's a perfect segue.
Isn't it, though?
Because the second edition of my book, it's called Hands-on Social Marketing, a step-by-step guide to designing change for good. The second edition has just come out, and I'm really excited about it because the first one was written in 1999, and a lot changed since then. So the book is really geared towards leading you through each of the steps of the social marketing process and giving you tips and tricks and worksheets to help you do that.
So that's perfect timing. And Kelly, our events manager, is so well organized, unlike some people, not mentioning myself. She has put the book up on the Health Promotion Live site where your webinar archive will be housed and the slides live and all that kind of stuff. But so, you can go directly there and find it.
Great.
Kelly told me that you have a social marketing series, webinar series that you just started.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I have something called Social Marketing University, through which I offer both live trainings and online trainings. And this week I actually started offering a 4-webinar series. This one is called the Hands-on Social Marketing Series. It's kind of more in-depth. 4 different webinars on the social marketing process, on segmenting your target audience, on behavior change, tips and tricks, and on evaluation and research. And I have some other webinars that I've done that are archived as well, that if you just look at Social Marketing University, you can see what's out there and maybe if you were interested in what I was talking about today, maybe there's other things that might be of interest to you as well.
I think we are completely out of time, actually slightly over. Thank you very much, Nedra. It was awesome having you. I'm so glad we were able to put this together and get you in here. And thanks everyone.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And thanks everyone for being here, and hope to see you again soon. Have a good weekend.